Right samadhi and insight in Sayadaw Candima's, Sayadaw Sandima's, teaching. Samādhi Practices. Part 1, of 3 parts. 3. The third stage of purification of the mind. This samadhi can keep the mind from greed and distress for long as wish. After fall into the second bhavanga mind, yogi continues with sati, staying with the cessation of the mind, i.e., mula kamathana. At the cessation for 3 hours, the strength of sati becomes weak and moha sticks back unknowingly. The mind with weariness and effort becomes weak and is able to arise. If there is an association with a clinging object, it will encounter an enemy. In one's own knowledge, yogi knows that he is still not discerning the paramattha mind and form. Therefore, when the time spent on the cessation becomes longer, the sati becomes weaker and the waiting kilesas stick back to the mind. The yogi knows that one's sati is still not free from the control of the enemy. He sees the flaw of sati becoming vulnerable with time. Therefore, he has to continue the practice by not letting sati move away from the object of cessation. With sati and nayan, stay with the cessation of conceptual object. Keeping the sati to the object with a bit more desire and mind process arises. If staying with the object of cessation without clearly and moha arises. If the nature of dissatisfaction arises, it becomes refined dosa. Here it's important to have very purified sati. There is not even any trace of dirt in the purified sati. Sometimes yogi has pleasantness on the clear mind, and also clear light can appear. He must give up the desire for these objects, only in the absence of other mind, stay on the cessation with sati and knowledge. Sayadaw Candima gave the following instruction: how to develop the practice vigorously. Closing square bracket. Take care of your body's needs, i.e., wash your face, go to the bathroom and eat breakfast, from 5 to 6 a.m. and do walking meditation with sati. Do sitting meditation from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. if it's necessary. Continue the practice from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Take care of the bodily needs from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Continue the practice from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Now it is arriving at the level of getting rid of the enemy completely, so yogis have to do the practice without getting up. The reason for the longer time is that after 3 to 4 hours the worldly sensual thinking comes in because the sati is unstable and unclean. Therefore, he has to practice vigorously until it's stable and clean with the cessation. With more care, yogi must not let sati disappear. During being mindful, yogi should not concern about the situation, it should be ignored. It is a worldly habit, an unwholesome mental factor, cetasika. With over-effort, the mind wanders and bhavanga vibrates, which destroy samadhi. With weak sati, it becomes moha and conceptual mind arises again. Dosa arises from one's unsatisfied desires, and lobha arises by thinking about the desire to achieve. Check lobha, dosa and moha with panna and do not let them stick together with sati, while paying attention to the nature of cessation and worldly sensual minds. In practice, there are 2 groups of Dhamma, i.e., form, rupa, group and mind, nama, group. The mind group is led by sahetu vinana, unwholesome and wholesome mind consciousness. Defilement, hindrances and concepts, unwholesome, and sati, panna are in this mind consciousness. Therefore, it's only using the sahetu mano vinana to contemplate sahetu vinana. This is contemplating the preceding mind with the following mind. In what follows, Candima compared the 4 ways of such contemplation. These refer to the 4 vipassana systems. 1. The preceding mind, sahetu vinana, with hindrances and anicca. The following contemplating mind, sahetu mano vinana, with sati contemplates the preceding mind as anicca, and the preceding mind ceases. At any one mind moment only one mind can exist. In this way, if the yogi can contemplate without gap and all the preceding mind with hindrances are ceased for temporary abandonment, tadanga vikamhana, for example, if there is an hour in an hour of meditation. But these cessations cannot last for 2 hours, because when the body is afflicted with pain and soreness, dosa and domanassa come up and it becomes invalid. 2. Another way is the preceding mind with concepts, e.g., see an object, hear a sound, etc. Next is the contemplative mind with concepts, e.g., seeing, hearing, etc. When pains and aches arise, it doesn't last for 2 hours. 3. The preceding mind with concepts and the contemplating mind with concepts, which contemplates the preceding mind as if there is nothing. When pains and aches arise, it doesn't last for 2 hours. 4. The preceding mind with concepts and the contemplating mind with no concepts and has sati. In this system, sati can stay with the cessation at least for 8 to 9 hours without moving, even can be more than that. This is Candima's way. The above 4 ways of contemplation are the same. 1, 2, 3 practices are only temporary abandonment, tadanga, with sila and samadhi, because they cannot abandon the faculty of pain, dukkhendriya, that in long term it fails. No. 4 practice is abandoned tanha from dukkha vedana, that it has no suffering and free from khandha dukkha, body pain but not the mind, and samadhi becomes stable. The contemplating mind at the 3rd stage of samadhi, sati, is clean with vithi chitta, mind movement, and cannot have uncertainty of dust. It must be free from the past and future of conceptual objects, must not have all worldly perceptions, sana. The mind must not have worldly sensual habits and behaviors. Sati and knowing are going together with stability. This is not letting the 14 unwholesome mental factors sticking with the mind during this samadhi. See Abhidhamma for these 14 akasala cetasikas. This knowing mind is called a purified mind. If the contemplating mind of the practicing yogi does not possess the above-mentioned qualities, he cannot enter the state of insight knowledge with the knowledge of the 3 characteristics, lakkhana nana. They must be considered for this, without becoming truly insightful. When the purified, calm and stable sati is staying with stability at the nature of cessation and in the chest for the 3rd time, there is a refined feeling that arises. It's for the 3rd time the mind falls into bhavanga samadhi. As soon as it happens, the mind stays at the clear element of bhavanga. The clear bhavanga is the paramatta mind element. This is also the birthplace of the minds. The sati at the 3rd stage of bhavanga samadhi is not fading away again that in this samadhi. The group of unwholesome mental factors are totally cased. It only has sati and panna, knowledge, nana. It seems to me that the sati and panna referred to by the Thai forest monks could be this kind of samadhi. Closing square bracket. Some yogi said, at this place there was only knowing existed. When the contemplating mind arrives at samadhi indriya, it becomes very refined. Because different kinds of worldly sensual concepts, worldly sensual minds, worldly sensual behavior are totally ceased in this samadhi. Therefore, no impurities appear again to stick with the mind, and during the Samadhi 14 unwholesome mental factors are ceased. This cessation of the minds is not Nibbana element. This is done with the power of Samadhi, not by wisdom, Panna. In other systems, this could be mistaken for Nibbana. There is no more reason to purify the mind. The mind can stay at the clear element of the bhavanga without moving. A yogi stays with this samadhi frees from the 5 sense objects, and also from the past and future mind objects, Dhamma aramana. He also frees from the objects with lobha, dosa, moha and ditthi kilesas for some periods, vikamhana. Therefore, Sahetu mind which is completed with right samadhi, sama samadhi, only taking the object of bhavanga. According to the 6 sets of 6 discourse, Chachaka Sutta, Majjhima N. It was mentioned that yogi also had to discern the mind, mana or mano. Now this attainment of samadhi discerns the clear element of the mind, mana. Because of this power of apeka ekagata samadhi, which just only taking the object of clear bhavanga, that it can stay there as one's wishes, the clear element is the sign, nimitta, with no concepts. It's free from the worldly sensual concepts of perception, sana. It's completed with samadhi indriya that frees from the defilement with perception which disturb this samadhi. Defilement signs are ceased in clear bhavanga. Therefore, it's free from the perceptions of signs. This samadhi frees from the desire of perception. Sensual objects, kama aramana, and defilement are ceased there, that it frees from the perception of wrong attention, ionizo manashikara. It doesn't need to look after the defilement that is sila visuddhi, purity of virtue. With the cessation of the polluted defilement, the mind becomes pure, which is citta visuddhi, purity of mind. The causes that make the mind shake disappears, and this is samadindriya, the faculty of samadhi. It just stays on the clear bhavanga, and the mind and form processes that would arise in the present moment due to the contact of sense objects cannot arise there. The contemplating mind protects the bhavanga there, and the mind objects, dhamma aramana, don't have the chances to arise. Because sahetu vinana is completed with samadindriya, which continuously inclining toward the clear bhavanga as an object, it stays with the bhavanga for many hours. The mind of this samadhi focuses only on observing the resemblance images presented in the bhavanga mind door, and will not accept any worldly conceptual objects. There is no mind action, citta sankhara, that takes worldly concepts as objects, and all mind action with transcendental, paramatta, perceptions about the object, the seeming images presented in the bhavanga mind, does not exist in the mind. This can be said that there is no perception, sana. It cannot be said that it does not exist at all, because if mind exists, perception also exists. To continue the practice, yogi has to move away from the clear bhavanga and contemplate the paramatta objects. This is moving away from the abandoning of the 6 sense doors. Abandonment of 6 sense doors is chalingapeka. Yogi's contemplative mind must have completion with the quality of abandoning the 6 sense doors to contemplate the nature of mind and form, rupa. This is the same as apeka ekagata samadhi, samadindriya, sama samadhi, etc. Closing square bracket. In the Buddha's teaching, i.e., suttas, the luminous mind or bhavanga, citta, is at the moment of unwholesome active cognitive mind process, akasala citta vithi, is defiled, and at the moment of wholesome active cognitive mind process, kasala citta free from defilement. Yogis have to be aware of this point in the suttas. This third stage of samadhi or purity of mind is liberated from the defilement can stay at the clear bhavanga. Therefore, the practice mentioned here is in accordance with the Buddha's teaching. Yogi has to come out from the clear bhavanga if he wants to develop great insight, maha vipassana. He can discern the clear bhavanga, that he can contemplate the arising phenomena which arisen by the contacts of objects from the 5 sense doors at the 5 clear elements, pasada, these are sight, sound, etc. and eye clear element, ear clear element, etc. According to the Chachaka Sutta, he can discern the 6 pairs of clear elements. Sayadaw U Candima's view. There are many basic meditation objects, such as at the top of the head. Noting at the rise and fall of the abdomen. Contemplate the preceding mind and the following mind, i.e. contemplative mind, doing anapana with strong breathing or soft breathing, practicing with momentary samadhi, kanika samadhi, practicing with dry insight system, Sudha vipassana, etc. Teachers are using all these methods or systems to teach and instruct yogis to practice these methods, in Burma. If yogis still do not discern the 6 pairs of clear elements and the 6 consciousnesses, it means that their discernment is still not true and correct. This problem does not arise in the Thai forest tradition, which follows the Sutta tradition without confusion. See the tradition of Ajahn Mun and the teachings of Ajahn Chah. Comparison with the 4 Vipers discourse. The practices from the 2nd Bhavanga to 3rd Bhavanga can be compared as follows. Falling into the 2nd Bhavanga is free from the 5 murderers, the 5 khandhas, and continue to run from the 6th murderer or the intimate companion, delight and lust, Nandi Raga. The latent craving, Anusaya Tanha, or Nandi Raga is stuck with the mind in the whole round of existence, samsara. So every mind arises already there. When the mind falls into bhavanga for the 3rd time, the pleasure and lust, nandaraga, mind ceases with the active cognitive mind process. After coming out from the clear bhavanga, it is free from the 6th murderer of intimate companion and arrives at the safety place. The abandonment of defilement at the 3rd stage of samadhi. 1. Worldly sensual conceptual objects cease. 2. The minds taking the worldly conceptual objects cease. 3. 1,500 defilement, kilesas, are ceased. The following objects are able to contemplate or discern with the 3rd Bhavanga Samadhi. 1. If one of the 6 senses of object contacts to the clear element of Bhavanga at the present moment, this Samadhi mind is able to contemplate the corresponding mind object, e.g., sight, sound, etc. Dhamma aramana with its ahatuka vinana, i.e., mind and form with no roots. This is the internal arising element. 2. Able to contemplate the 2 elements of knowing nature and unknowing nature of the clear bhavanga. These are internal base elements. 3. Able to contemplate the mind and form arising at the 5 sense doors at the present moment, as an example. When a sight object contacts with the eye element, cakkhu pasada, the arising form object, ruparamana, and eye consciousness, cakkhu vinana. This is internal base elements, eye clear element to body clear element. 4. Able to contemplate the 5 kinds of contact which like an electric current toward the clear bhavanga, from the clear elements, i.e., cakkhu pasada, sota pasada, etc. of the 5 sense doors. These are internal contact elements. 5. Every time one of the 5 contacts, phassa, hits the clear bhavanga. At the clear bhavanga mind and form arise that is the same kind as mind and form which appear there. E.g., a visual object appears at the eye door and the same object also appears at the mind door. The Samadhi mind is able to contemplate similar minds and forms that appear at the door of the mind. This is an internal arising element. 6. Able to contemplate the mind contacts, mano samphasa, which incline back to the corresponding pasada, e.g., eye clear element, after the mind and form appear at the mind door, mano devara. This is the internal contact element. 7. Every time after a mind contact arises an experience of feeling, mental feeling, arising at sahetu vijnana. This samadhi is able to discern or contemplate it. This is an internal arising element. The following sahetu vijnana contemplates the preceding sahetu vijnana, i.e., mind contemplates a mind. 8. With this samadhi able to contemplate the above-mentioned mind and form natural process as mind and form, as contact, phassa, as feeling, vedana, with perceptions, sana, or contemplate as anicca, dukkha, anatta, etc. With perceptions. 9. Able to discern the particles of 32 parts of the body which appear at the bhavanga as dharma aramana of form. 10. Able to give the perceptions of man, woman, tree, etc. to the form objects which arise or appear at bhavanga, if don't want to give the perceptions also possible. 11. During the practice, i.e. maha vipassana, the mental states concerning boredom, distraction, etc. do not arise by themselves as far as the span of time is concerned. 12. The benefits of this samadhi are: a yogi can contemplate the above conditioned mind and forms, sankhata nama rupa, their variations, vikara, their characteristics, lakkhana, and conceptual nature in any posture and at any time, such as driving a car, eating, talking, doing, etc., according to his or her desire. In the beginning, the yogi had the desire to see the paramatta mind and form the objects of contemplation that searching and practicing for it. Now he is discerning him, so the matter of finding him is over. Now he only needs to contemplate and develop them with the three universal characteristics until tanha, mana and ditthi are rooted out from the mind, the anusayas. Here we can see the importance of sama samadhi, apeka ekaggata samadhi or the fourth jhana. Also, it is the most difficult part of the practice as mentioned by Ajahn Lee with the analogy of building a bridge across a river. Samadhi was like the middle part of the bridge. A very well-known Burmese teacher said as follows, "It may be soon loon Sayadaw." It's more difficult to make something not exist before than with something already existing. The first referred to samadhi and the second way insight, the three lakkhanas. If the yajik with this samadhi does not pay attention to the paramatta objects and instead takes the objects of worldly sensual conceptual objects, he will see, hear, smell, etc. the same as ordinary people. The above purity of mind, third samadhi, is according to the snake's discourse. 1. Free from the dangers of 4 viper snakes, 2. The 5 murderers, 3. The 6th murderer or the intimate friend, and the yogi finds out the village with 6 houses and the 6 bandits, i.e., the 6 clear elements of eye, ear, etc. and the 6 sense objects of sight, sound, etc. with the 6 consciousnesses, vijnana. With the connection of the 6 sets of 6 discourse continue with insight practice, the yogi discerns the 6 clear elements, pasada, the 6 sense objects, the 6 consciousnesses, the 6 contacts, the 6 feelings and the 6 cravings, tanha. Now the yogi is at the place of crossing the river to the other shore of Nibbana. To reach the 1/4 of the river, i.e., to give up ditthi anusaya, the potential defilement of the ego view, he must develop the insights from purification of views, ditthi visuddhi, to purification by knowledge and vision, nanadasana visuddhi. Analysis of the 3 stages of purification of the mind. 3 stages of bhavanga and its views. Candima gives the following example for the 3 stages of bhavanga and its views. A house has 3 doors inside a compound. These are the main compound door, the entrance door into the house, and a door into a sleeping room. When the house owner is inside the bedroom, he can only see the things inside it, but he cannot see the things in the main room, in the compound, and all the external things outside the compound. If the owner wants to come out from the bedroom, he has to open the bedroom door and close it again. Outside the room, he cannot see the things inside the bedroom. He can only see the things in the main room. He also cannot see the things in the compound and outside the compound. From the main room, if he wants to go outside the compound, he has to close the main room door and go out and close it again. Then he'll see only the things in the compound, but not the things in the bedroom, in the main room and outside of the compound. From the compound, if he wants to go outside, he has to open the compound door and close it back. Outside the compound he only sees the things there, but he'll not see the things in the compound, in the main room and in the bedroom. If the owner wants to go back to his bedroom from outside, he has to do it in the reverse order as mentioned above. We can compare the above experiences of the house owner with the yogi's experiences with his attainments of the 3 stages of purified mind or 3 bhavanga samadhis. 1. The 3rd time yogi falls into bhavanga is like closing the bedroom door. The doors here are in restricting the boundaries, going in and coming out. The things inside the bedroom are similar to the paramatta objects of mind and form mentioned in the 6 sets of 6 discourse, Chachaka Sutta. 2. The 2nd time the mind falls into bhavanga, the cessation of sensual perceptions of mind, karma sana of the mind, is like closing the main room door. The things inside the main room are similar to the groups of particles discerned by the yogi. 3. The 1st time the mind falls into bhavanga is like closing the compound door. The things inside the compound are similar to the phenomena there and in accordance with the attentions, manasikaras, of them. 1. 3 2 parts of the body. 2. The 4 great elements. 3. The affliction of form, rupa, mind contact, mano samphasa, and feeling, vedana. The things outside the compound are like all the objects of the external world. The mind takes them as worldly sensual conceptual objects. 4. The house owner is like the yogi's contemplative mind, sahetu mano vinana, mind consciousness with roots. Here is wholesome root. If we observe and analyze the above comparison, the objects of mind and form are not easily seen and contemplated according to our own desires. In accordance with the different levels or stages of samadhi or bhavanga, and the mind and form are also quite different. The contemplative knowledges, jnanas, which contemplate the paramatta mind and form are also different according to their purity. A yogi who had attained the 3rd level of samadhi or bhavanga will not see or discern the different kinds of paramatta mind and form if he does not enter into the 3 levels of bhavanga and in normal way. It was like the house owner stayed outside the compound. Note, in the following, Sayadaw U. Candima has published his comments in the book. Whoever is looking for Dhamma by using whichever method or system, the Dhamma phenomena of 6 clear elements, pasada, in him are also the same. The 6 sense objects falling on the 6 clear elements are also the same. The 6 consciousnesses are also the same in them. The 6 contacts, phassa, the 6 feelings, vedana, and the 6 cravings, tanha, are also the same in them. Therefore, the discernment of mind and form also should be the same. It should not be that the yogi's discernment are different like this or like that. Paramatta mind and form are clean or purified objects, not defiled. The samadhi which discerns them is also purified samadhi. These minds and forms are penetrated by oneself. In insight, vipassana, there is no such thing as coolness, clearness like a mirage, with light, floating around, don't know anything and attaining of insight knowledges by the confirmation of a teacher, etc. Yogis have to be careful about these things. It seems to me these are some yogis' experiences in other methods or systems. I don't know what any of this really means. But there will be some yogis who talk about their experiences in many different ways, some of which may be misunderstood or misleading. 3 types of bhavanga, 3 enemies and 3 coverings of concepts. I have explained the 3 bhavanga and its views with the example of the owner and the house. I'll base on this example again to explain the abandoning of the hindrance on the process to these bhavangas. Let us assume the owner had the most expensive ruby kept in the bedroom. The owner employed 3 security guards to protect his house. The first guard took his place outside the compound main door. The second one was inside the compound to protect the main entrance door into the house. The third one was inside the house at the outside bedroom door. A notorious bandit wanted to own the ruby. So at first he had to kill the guard outside the compound. He opened the main compound door and closed it again. He had to kill the second guard at the main house entrance door. He opened its door and closed it again. In the house, he had to kill the third guard at the bedroom door, which he opened and closed again. The fourth time he had to kill the owner who was clinging to the ruby. In the above example, the analogy is as follows. 1. The guard outside the compound was like a worldly sensual concept with different objects and the poison of the 4 vipers. 2. The guard inside the compound was like the 5 hindrances. 3. The guard inside the house was like delight and lust, nandaraga. 4. The owner inside the bedroom was like a latent defilement of ignorance, avijja anusaya. The bandit was like the contemplative mind of the Eightfold Path. The analogies of the above-mentioned situations are: to kill the first guard outside the compound was like before falling into the first bhavanga, abandoning the defilement which disturbed the contemplating mind. Opening the compound door was like falling into the first bhavanga. To kill the second guard inside the compound was like abandoning the defilement which disturbed the contemplating mind, and opening the main house door was like falling into the second bhavanga. To kill the third guard inside the house was like abandoning the defilement which disturbed the contemplating mind, and opening the bedroom door was like into the third bhavanga. Killing the house owner was like coming out from the bhavanga, and owning the ruby was like discerning the 36 objects of mind and form, i.e., 6 sets of 6 objects mentioned in the Chacchaka Sutta. The paramatta mind and form, rupa, are the objects of insight knowledge. It's very refined and subtle, arising and passing away very quickly. If the contemplative mind is covered with delusion, moha, clinging to the concepts as reality, the mind is coarse with lobha and dosa, no stability on the present object with dispersion, etc., it cannot discern the 36 kinds of paramattha mind and form. Even though we are talking about mind and form, there are great differences between the appearance of mind and form and the seeing or discerning of mind and form. It can be said as thought or speculation and direct seeing or discerning. Yogis must take care about this point. Sayadaw's point is without right samadhi or the fourth level or the third bhavanga samadhi. It is right if the yogi can contemplate and discern the paramattha mind and form arising in the present moment through the object of contact in a second. The practice of samatha yanaka way to arrive at the right samadhi, sama samadhi, or the purification of the mind exists as only one way, and vipassana yanaka way also only one way. In his book, i.e., Candima's The Way to Stream Entry, No. 1, Basic Anapana Kamathana is abandoned craving, tanha, for temporary, tadanga pahana. See the list of the first level of the purification of the mind. Anapana scales like Samadhi practice abandoning of tanha directly, instead in competition with tanha to control the mind to abandon lobha, dosa, moha for temporary, tadanga, and longer period, vikhamhana. In his center, Candima did not teach his students for realization with this system, but he taught him only how to develop this samadhi. Then in the future if they like it and can use it. The Ingu Sayadaw used this samadhi for insight. In my opinion, it is simpler than using Candima's system of practice. No. 4, No. 5, and No. 6 practices are to contemplate on tanha directly and abandon tanha completely, samucheda pahana. This tanha connects with ditthi and dosa to the mind. The usage here abandon tanha completely, not with panna, only with samadhi. The first stage of purification of the mind ends here. The active mind process of tanha and domanassa is calmed down, that for the first time the tension at the bhavanga also calmed down. The second stage of purification of the mind is practicing by making sati stable at the cessation of many mental states of the mind. These are taking the objects of past, present and future, mind with hindrances. The mind gives the perceptions on objects with many kinds of concepts. Greedy mind on objects, mind with uncertainty of delusion, moha. This is stabilizing of sati at the cessation of all these mental states. The second time with the cessation of unwholesome active mind process that the tension of bhavanga calms down for the second time. With the cessation of the above defilement, the mind temporarily calms down and over a period of time it becomes purified. The practice of the third stage of purification of the mind is that the refined and subtle of the above defilement, i.e., at the second stage, are a bit insecure. When they are arising again, practicing by making sati totally stable and controlling them, that sati becomes a faculty, satindriya. When mindfulness becomes satindriya, the above-mentioned defilement with the refined active mind process has ceased, that the refined bhavanga calmed down again. In the mind the hindrances of lobha, dosa and moha, and all the minds give the perceptions of concept are purified, and then the mind completed in purity. The mind becomes the faculty of samadhi. In other way, a mind completed with right samadhi, sama samadhi. With this purified mind, yogi can discern or contemplate the clean paramattha mind and form. And then he can continue with the insight contemplation. Note: Sayadaw Candima wrote 5 chapters on the whole practice of stream entry in his book, The Way to Stream Entry. It's quite a detailed exposition. The 5 chapters are 1. Chapter 1. The nature of objects of mind and form. 2. Chapter 2. The nature of the practice. 3. Chapter 3. Developing the practice. It's about Sila and Samadhi practice. With the 7 purifications, it includes the virtue and purification of the mind, Sila and Chitta Visuddhis. Right Samadhi and Insight in Sayadaw U Candima's, Sayadaw U Sandima's, teaching. Samadhi Practices. Part 2, of 3 parts. 4. Chapter 4. The nature of the contemplative knowledge, Nana. In this chapter, he explained about the other 4 purifications of views: overcoming doubt, purification of the path and not path, and purification of the way. This chapter is on insight practice, Maha Vipassana. 5. Chapter 5. The nature of the noble path, Magga. It's about purification through knowledge and vision. This is the 7th purification of the mind. In my book, I have no plan to describe Sayadaw U Candima's whole practice. His book was already translated, and whoever is interested in it can find it on the internet, www.amazon.com. I will continue to describe the insight practice very roughly. This is related to Chapter 4. Development of insight. Entering into right Samadhi, Samma Samadhi. After attaining the 3rd Bhavanga Samadhi, yogi prepares for his sitting posture. To arrive back to one's attainment of Samadhi, with mindfulness, sati, taking the object of the cessation of mind with worldly concept. At that time, the active mind process which takes the object of external world, loka, temporary ceases, tadanga. Because of the active mind process, the tension of the bhavanga calms down. This is the 1st Bhavanga Samadhi. With the calming down of the bhavanga, the physical body, kara kanda, and the mind connection are cutting off. The active mind process of connection with taking care of the body also stops at the same time. Even though the 4 elements are afflicted, the yogi's mind has no suffering. The body in sitting also has no movement. The physical body is like a stone statue and has stability even for a 10 hours long period. U Candima takes this samadhi equal to the 1st Rupa jhana. In the West, some teachers had a different view on this point and confused people. Let sati stay continuously with the cessation of all the minds, and then for the 2nd time the bhavanga calm down again. Because of the samadhi, the mind doesn't want to sit longer period. The mind with lethargy. The mind does not want to stay quiet with thinking this and that. The mind wants to move freely with wrong attention. The mind with sleepy condition, etc. All these unwholesome active minds with the tension of the bhavanga are calmed down. After the 2nd time, the bhavanga falls in the mind with sati stays put and without any movement. At that time, if the yogi is looking at his own physical body, kara kanda, with nana, knowledge, he does not know its shape and form, because the 2nd samadhi kept away the concepts. In other way, it's taking the object of cessation that no arising of the worldly minds, lokya chittas. With sati continuing stays at the cessation again, it abandons the refined active mind process. Because of it the tension of the bhavanga calms down again. This mind is staying by itself at the clearer element, pasada, of the bhavanga mind. There is no movement of the mind with its sati, because the mind with the mental factor of darkness, moha, is cut off from the mind. After it falls into 3rd bhavanga, it becomes right samadhi, samma samadhi. It's completed with Samadhi Indriya. It frees from abhijja, domanassa and moha with stability. Giving the names of concepts to the six sense objects also cease instability. It's transcending the worldly concepts and penetrating the mind element, mano dhatu, of Lokiya Paramatta Dhamma. When yogi arrive at this samadhi, all the refined level of active mind process is ceased and calmed down, and his closed eyes open themselves a little. His eyelashes are also not moving at all with the opened eyes. In the following, I will only describe the insight practice very roughly. Ditthi Visuddhi, specially purified view, discernment of mind and matter. Purification of view, contemplation of mind and matter in the six sets of six discourse. Let's assume Mr. Brown is the yogi, and he has a son named John. When Mr. Brown is in the third Bhavanga Samadhi, John stands in front of him. When he looks up at John, who is standing in front of him, and he cannot incline the mind toward him, Mr. Brown can only take the object on the clear element of the eyes. Previously, he thought that every time he saw any external object, the mind would go out and find that object. That the mind takes an external object and sees it is a wrong view. The external object contacts the clear eye element and the mind takes the internal object at the clear eye element with seeing and knowing is the right view. With the right seeing by contemplating the clear eye element is not me, not him, there is no life with the soul and the Creator. It's expressing the nature of sight object which falls on it. It cannot prevent the clear eye element from receiving the sight object. Here, the object of contemplation is the clear eye element. The contemplative knowledge is the following path factors of mind. This is discerning of form or matter and mindfulness of the body, rupa paragaha nana and kayanupasana satipatthana. During the contemplation of form or sight object with their nature of characteristic, sabhava lakkhana, another thing find out is nearly the same as sight object, but different seeing nature of a mind. Here, the object of contemplation is the preceding eye consciousness. The contemplative knowledge is the following path factors mind consciousness with roots, sthe hetuka vinana magan. This is mindfulness of the mind, citanupasana satipatthana. This seeing mind consciousness is not taking the external object of John, but only taking the object at the clear eye element by itself. These seeing mind consciousness and the form object are nearly the same, but have different qualities. One is knowing nature and the other is not knowing nature, i.e., mind and form. This mind consciousness does not have the nature of me, no nature of, I see it, there is no naming of John, my son, no criticism of good or bad, not seeing as a soul, not seeing with clinging as a person or a being, just existing as knowing. Before taking the seeing consciousness as my mind and I see it. Now Mr. Brown knows that the seeing mind is doing its own task. Mr. Brown's wrong view is falling away at the moment of contemplation by seeing it. This is the discernment of the mind and mindfulness of the mind, nama paragaha nana and citanupasana satipatthana. Mr. Brown contemplates nature of elements of mind and form analytically as not me with not self or non-self inside knowledge. This is discernment of mind and form, nama paragaha nana. During his contemplation of form at the eye door and its seeing mind, he finds out another significant nature. This nature that arose from the eye door was like an electric current element, i.e., eye contacts, kaku samphasa. When he is carefully observing it, that is running toward the bhavanga clear element, and hitting at it. There is no creator or master at this nature, no existence of person and being and no expression of a soul, which Mr. Brown sees it clearly with discernment. The preceding object is eye contacts, kaku samphasa. The following contemplating knowledge is the path factors mind consciousness with roots, sahetu vinana maginga. This is nama paragaha nana and sitanupasana satipatthana. Continuing the contemplation, Mr. Brown finds out a mental image, picture, appears at the bhavanga clear element. This mental image is the same as John outside, and the same image as on the eye clear element. Three of them are the same. The object of contemplation is mind object, Dhamma aramana. The following contemplating knowledge is the path factors mind of mind consciousness with roots, sahetu vinana maganga. This is discernment of mind abject, rupa paragaha nana, and mindfulness of Dhamma, dhammanupasana satipatthana. Again Mr. Brown observes and investigates mind object, Dhammarupa, and he finds out another mind element, even though it's similar to the Dharma form, but it has the knowing nature of mind consciousness with no roots, ahatuka vinana, because Dharma form has the nature of not knowing anything. This mind element is not giving the concepts of name to that Dharma object, Dhamma aramana. There is no like or dislike, not making any decision, not doing any wholesome or unwholesome actions. There is no making of with see it or changing with the self to it. It only has the nature of knowing, not more than that. This mind consciousness without roots accepts the mind object only with knowingness. Mr. Brown discerns it with direct knowledge. The object of contemplation is the preceding mind consciousness without roots. The contemplating mind is the following path factors mind consciousness with roots. This is discernment of mind and mindfulness of the mind. During the observation with contemplation of mind and form at the bhavanga, from bhavanga to the eye door an element, mind contacts, mano samphasa, comes out and inclining toward the eye clear element like a lighting. This contemplation is not taking the objects of the eye door and mind door, only contemplating the connection of these two doors. This element, like an electric current, is very quickly arising and passing away. When carefully observe this nature, they are arising in turn like a lightening of two elements from eye to, i.e., from the eye to bhavanga and from bhavanga to the eye. These are kaku samphasa with mano samphasa. The nature of these elements is not me and also not myself, atta, not arisen by my order. No creator exists, no soul exists, etc. This is nama paragaha nana and sitanupasana satipatthana. Whenever these two elements arose, Mr. Brown carefully observed and contemplated the connection between them. This is observing and investigating with a very refined, subtle, penetrative samadhi. Every time these electric currents fall onto bhavanga and there is an element, i.e., Vedana, arising which experiences the object with them together, i.e., eye and mind contacts. This aggregate of feeling nature is not me nor myself, atta, not arisen by my order. There is no creator and soul. This is discernment of the mind, and mindfulness of feeling with mind consciousnesses have no roots and roots. These are ahatuka vinana and sahetuka vinana, referred to kaku samphasa and mano samphasa. Contemplate on the contemplative knowledge. After the contemplation of the objects of mind and form and discerning him as not a person, nor a being and not me, Mr. Brown wants to know about the contemplative knowledge. Therefore, He takes the object at the eye door, and at the same time the contemplative knowledge arises to contemplate them as the nature of mind and form. Again, he contemplates the preceding contemplative knowledge with the following contemplative K. At the moment, the preceding mind ceases. Here the object is the preceding mind consciousness with roots, the contemplative K. Is path factors mind consciousness with roots this contemplative mind with knowledge of concept, vijja manapanati, arises is not my creation, but arises by itself. This knowledge of mind is not me, nor myself, and not a person nor a being. And then he contemplates the feeling which arises with the preceding mind K. With the following contemplative mind K, he discerns its rise and fall. With changing of the objects and minds are also changing. Note: here I don't want to continue the following contemplation with experiments. Now the readers have the general idea of the insight practice. Closing square bracket. Contemplation of the mind with the attention on the worldly sensual concepts. Based on the above-mentioned mind and form process, Mr. Brown takes the object of mind and form appearing at the clear element of bhavanga, and he pays attention to it, with the worldly sensual concept, avijja manapanati, such as, "This is John, my son." Then it changes into the mind clinging with a person and a being of defilement by itself. These mind consciousness with roots arise based on the worldly sensual concept by giving the perception, sana, because they arise from the fetters of defilement tanha, mana and ditthi which are not abandoning yet. Experience, feeling of, this Dharma object also arises with it. Based on this feeling with wrong view as my son and clinging with tanha, affection infiltrate the mind. Vedana conditions tanha. From tanha clinging arises tanha pakaya upadana. This clinging, upadana dharma, does not exist at the present moment because of clinging to the past mind object of John, which appeared at Mr. Brown's bhavanga. Mind object of John with the mind group of mind consciousness with no roots is becoming bhava. This is a clinging conditioning action for becoming. The following mind consciousness with roots arising together with clinging is birth, jati, bhava pakaya jati. This becoming of birth, bhava jati, is discerned by the following contemplative mind with roots. Here the Dharma object is form Dharma, the following mind with no roots and with roots, i.e., Ahetuka and Sa Hetuka Chitas. Know the Dharma object is mind Dharma. The readers should read these two paragraphs carefully from the above until now. These are the arising of the clinging five khandhas by concept. Candima shows them with dependent co-arise. The whole process is simple, but his expression is complex. Mr. Brown contemplates the preceding mind with mind object and Vedana, and the mind with Kilesa are ceased. Here the Dharma object is form, the experience, feeling, of the Dharma object is mind. This is discernment of mind and matter, nama rupa paragahanana. In this way, at present life, there are many mind processes of clinging with becoming, birth, upadana, bhava, jati, arise. Here also I will not continue the following Dharma experiments of Candima. The readers now have the general idea about this section. Closing square bracket. I clear element, sight, object, I consciousness, mind object, Dharma aramana, mind consciousness, mano vinana, feeling, eye contacts, kaku samphasas and mind contacts, mano samphasa. And then conceptual object with mind consciousness with roots are the five khandhas, mind and form, of 36 kinds mentioned in the 6 sets of 6 discourse. Here Mr. Brown can contemplate them and discerns the 5 khandhas which are mentioned there. According to the Viper's discourse, this is seeing the 6 villages, 6 houses and 6 bandits. And according to the Ant Hill discourse is seeing the tortoise. Contemplation on the mind, Dharma Aramana, of the skeleton. Based on the above-mentioned form and mind process, Mr. Brown makes the attention to the Dharma object of John appears at the Bhavanga as a skeleton body. Because of this contemplative mind, the original image of John ceases and a new image of its skeleton arises. If the mind changes, the attention of the object and the Dharma object also changes. Mr. Brown knows this nature with his knowledge, Nana, Rupa Paragaha Nana, Dharmanupasana Satipatthana. Again he contemplates with the following mind to this mind object with its concept as a skeleton, and it passes away. The preceding mind, Anicca, and the following mind, Maganga, Nama Paragaha Nana and Sitanupasana. This skeleton conceptual mind is not my creation, not me nor self, atta, and it arises by itself and passes away by itself. Mr. Brown contemplates in this way. Again he contemplates the feeling of the preceding mind with the object of the skeleton. The essence of this feeling is that there are no good and bad nature, i.e., not as desirable and undesirable Ittharamana and Anatta Aramana, but only as mere sensations, Nama Paragaha Nana, Vedana Satipatthana. Mr. Brown is reflecting in the following way on the form object of the mind, Rupa Dharma Aramana, which similar to John at the Bhavanga element. The mind can never directly relate to external objects. The mind is imprisoned inside the Bhavanga, the jail room which exists in the 4 elements of prison with the 5 doors. Here the mind equals prisoner, Bhavanga equals jail room, the physical body equals prison, the 5 prison doors equals the 5 sense doors. When the 5 sense objects enter the prison doors, friends or relatives, the 5 conscious guardians, warders, are receiving them, and the contact jailers bring them to the prisoners of the mind. Mr. Brown discerns it that way. Before that he thought as the mind was inclining toward the external objects directly and dealing with them. This was wrong believing. With the following contemplative Nana, i.e., Sahetu Mano Vinana, he discerns the cessation of Tana, Mana, Ditti minds by itself, which is based on the mind knowledge on the skeleton. These minds are with the concepts of my son, John, clinging, person, being, etc. This knowledge is Nama Paragaha Nana with Sitanupasana Satipatthana, Vita Raga, Vita Dosa, Vita Moha Satanti Pajanati. It means the mind is without passion, without aversion, without delusion, he discerns them. Contemplate from the skeleton to particle object. Mr. Brown takes the skeleton object at the Bhavanga and changes the skeleton to the particles group of object by changing its attention as particles, because bone are not existed as a lump, only as a group of particles. At the time, the skeleton image of the Bhavanga changes into a group of particles, i.e., becoming bhava. Rupa Paragaha Nana, Dharmanupasana Satipatthana. Here, we must pay attention to the point that the skeleton cannot become a particle without disappearing. It disappears first, and in its place a new object arises. It is not something that can be taken as a soul, as some Mahayanists think. That is just a change of veneer, or outer appearances. Based in this group of particles Dharma object and Mr. Brown's Sahetu Vinana, which knows this object arises, i.e., birth, jati. Here the readers can be confused without the Abhidharma knowledge. This preceding mind arises and the following mind Sahetu Vijnana discerns it. Cittanupassana Satipatthana. When contemplate like this, the mind knowing as the particles ceases, i.e., death, marana. Here also discerning of the Vedana which experiences the object of particles with the preceding knowing mind. If Mr. Brown abandons the attention of the mind object, Dharma Aramana, at the Bhavanga as skeleton or particles or John, then all the mind objects and all the other minds based on these objects are ceased, and then the following mind, Sahetu Vijnana, stops at Bhavanga, with just seeing. The following contemplative mind, Sahetu Vijnana, discerns these natures. The preceding mind object with the mind Dharma is Anicca. The following mind is Magga, Nama Rupa Paragahanana, Dharmanupassana Satipatthana, during at this stage of Samadhi. If John was not outside form Dharma object, Rupa Dharma Aramana, appears at the Bhavanga will cease and leaving only with Bhavanga clear element, and the contemplative mind continues to stay at the Bhavanga. Even though an outside object exists, if the mind not pay attention to it, the mind still can stay with the Bhavanga. Contemplate the past mind objects. After Mr. Brown contemplated the mind-body processes of John which appeared at the Bhavanga clear element, he based on this mind object of John changes into the childhood of John by paying attention to its past image which he remembers. Then the present image of John appears at the Bhavanga, disappears, and the childhood of John image appears at its place, Dharmanupassana Satipatthana. The knowing of changing mind also appears together by itself. Vedana which experiences it also appears with them by itself. Based on the object of this mind and Vedana in that mind, clinging to the little boy John as a son, clinging view, Diti Upadana, my son, clinging to being, Atta Vajupadana, and affectionate mind, Kamupadana. And other clinging dharmas then appear in his mind. Feeling is the condition of craving and clinging or feeling, as a result of craving and clinging. At the present it does not exist, but clinging to the past object, that mind object appears at the Bhavanga, clinging conditions becoming bhava. Note: here we know the importance of Abhidharma teaching. It makes more clear and profound how the mind with mental states work by conditioning. The following contemplative mind, Sahetu Mano Vijnana, discerns the arising mind, bhava conditions jati, birth, with clinging, dharma object is form dharma, the preceding minds of Ahatuka and Sahetu are nama dharmas. This contemplative mind also discerns the feeling which experiences the object with the preceding mind. Dharma Aramana is form dharma, feeling the object is mind dharma, nama rupa paragahanana. The above mind with kilesa comes to cessation by contemplating the feeling, i.e., jara and marana. In the following Candima continues with his experiments with contemplation as mentioned above like the others. I will not continue it because readers have the general idea. Closing square bracket. Contemplation on the future mind objects. Let us assume Mr. Brown wants to become a monk in the future. He pays attention to the Bhavanga and thinks about himself as a monk image. At the moment his image of a monk appears there. Upadana right pointing arrow bhava. At the same time, the mind knows the object also arises with it, bhava right pointing arrow jati. And then Mr. Brown's gladden mind arises on the mind object, monk image. It connects to Tana, Vedana right pointing arrow Tana. He contemplates this mind with its Vedana, and the gladdened mind ceases. He discerns this cessation of the following contemplative mind, i.e., from Vedana and Tanna stops. Mr. Brown continues the contemplation with the skeleton mind object of the future and the particles object of the future. All these contemplations are already mentioned before with the present and past objects, please see them. In these ways he contemplates many times the natural characteristics of mind and form dharmas by changing the mind objects differently. These are dharmanupassana satipatthana. The following knowledge arises in him. Before the practice he was thinking and planning with the past and future mind objects and took them as really exist, but it was not true. In reality, because of one's clinging, that the clinging objects which were the fake images arose at the bhavanga. It only exists at the time of clinging to them, and when the clinging ceased they disappeared. They are unstable, with no essence and not really exist like a romantic art. He discerns them with knowledge, jnana. These obsessions are tormenting and oppressing the clinging mind. A man who makes his own fire is only burning himself, and does no good, but only brings bad results. Mr. Brown becomes fearful and wearisome to the clinging phenomena. Note: from here onward, I will explain U Candima's instruction on vipassana practice only in gist. He continues to explain the contemplation on sound, smell, taste and body touch which are related to the past and future mind and form processes. The way of contemplation is already mentioned as above. Ordinary people knows that their thinking and mind objects are in the minds, but they do not have the third level of samadhi or purification of mind, vipassana kanika sama. Here he refers it as such. But as in the beginning he already explained that this kanika vipassana samadhi is according to the Visuddhimagga and other commentaries equal to the jhanic levels. Not an ordinary moment-to-moment sati. Here the third bhavanga samadhi is equal to the fourth jhana. That cannot know, see and contemplate as really is, i.e., yathabhuta jnana. All these refer to the bhavanga clear element. The objects appear at the bhavanga clear element, the true nature of mind consciousness with roots, sahetu mano vinana, and its changes. Therefore, they wrongly know these things as, I see, I think, etc. They do not see the objects appear at the bhavanga, with wrongly take them as at external or in the past or future. Note: U Candima's view on true insight. The contemplative knowledge, jnana, of an insight yogi must be able to discern the paramatta objects as mentioned before. It's not by speculation and thought, but analytically seeing and discerning. Only with this kind of ability to discern analytical skills, the inversion or perversion or distortion, vipallasa dharmas, which latent and covered one's mind will become extinct. In this way, the yogi must be able to discern the contemplating objects of mind and form, paramatta, which are free from raga, dosa and moha and have the nature of rise and fall. These are their true nature as it really is. At the present moment, discerning of the rise and fall of paramatta nama rupa is the true insight knowledges of non-self with inconstancy, i.e., anatta vipassana and anicca vipassana jnanas. It's also the discernment of the truth of dukkha. He also makes an important point related to the ending of rising and falling. In the present of practice, the ending of rising and falling is the clinging khandhas of sahetu vinana group. Yogis should not mistake the resultant khandhas of present life. The contemplative mind is able to discern the paramatta objects of the main cause is right samadhi or the purity of mind. before the mind not arriving yet at this level of purity and contemplating with thinking and speculation as true insight is wrong. The profound and difficult practice of insight becomes easily attainable in a short time. This is the sign of the degeneration or decline of Patipatti Sasana. This is not only in Burma, but also in the West. See Buddhism in the West. The existence of the three worlds. After contemplation of the mind objects related to the past and future of the five sense objects, i.e., eye, car, nose, the following knowledge arises to Mr. Brown. Even though the mind consciousness cannot go out from the mind door, Manadvara, or except the Manadvara cannot incline toward other doors, it can pay attention to any desire object and clinging object. He can investigate and experience directly the nature of the mind and its characteristics and wondrous nature, that his insight knowledge of non-self nature becomes more clear and able to make his own decision on it. Therefore, he understands that if there is no mind and there will be no world, loka, and if loka exists, it depends on the decision of the mind. Note: an arahant takes the object of nibbana, even though he has the mind not clinging to it as the world, loka. He just stops at seeing, hearing, just stops at knowing, etc. That liberate from the concept of loka. After understanding of them, Mr. Brown looking at the sun in the sky and go into the third bhavanga samadhi. At the bhavanga, the mind object of the sun with the sky appears on it. Mind consciousness with rootless, ahatuka vinana, appears by taking this object. Prior to this experience, he believed that the world of the sky and the sun existed outside, which was wrong. The sun and the sky appear at the bhavanga, a form Dhamma, and it's the physical world, okasa loka. Knowing this Dharma object as sky and the sun, the clinging mental mind world is only staying at the bhavanga. This Dharma object of sky and the sun will not appear if one has no mind. Human beings are taking the world with clinging as external, but in reality it exists at one's own bhavanga. This knowing is knowing the existences of the physical world, okasa loka, and ahatuka mano vinana, the world of beings. Satta loka. The knowing mind with the concept takes the objects of that world, i.e., mind object and ahatuka mind consciousness, knows it as the sun, and concept is the following arising of the other world, i.e., sahetu mind, which is the world of being, the same world as ahetuka mind. With the contemplative mind, contemplates the arising satta loka. These okasa loka and satta loka, i.e., mind object and these two knowing minds, are arisen by itself with conditionings. The mind discerns it as one of the worlds, i.e., conditioned world, sankhara loka. When taking the object at the eye door, the sky with the sun of physical object, ruparamana, also appear there and the mind discerns it. This is okasa loka. The eye consciousness knows this object is satta loka. These two lokas are arisen by causes and conditions and exist as rising and falling is conditioned world, sankhara loka. The contemplative Nana knows these three worlds is knowledge of the worlds. From the above direct experience, Mr. Brown discerns the following Dharma. The eye and mind doors are the places for the existence of the world. Only these lokas exist. There is no I-ness exists and not me. Also not others. Not a person nor a being. Not man nor woman. Not a place for love and hate and not a place for clinging with fetters. He discerns and understands it that the falling away for the identity view, Sakyadirthi, becomes more purified. Mr. Brown continues with other objects with the contemplation, including family members, etc. For many times, the connection between internal and external worlds. From the above experiences, Mr. Brown understands that there are three worlds that exist as mind and form phenomena, i.e., Ukkaṭṭha, Satta and Sankhara lokas. The sunlight color is form, rupa, phenomenon, and Ukkaṭṭha loka, and it dispels darkness by conditioning that also Sankhara loka. This loka contacts with the I-clear element of Ukkaṭṭha loka, and I-consciousness of Satta loka arises. This Satta loka of I-consciousness inclining toward the Ukkaṭṭha loka of form object that it also called Sankhara loka. These three lokas contact together by conditioning that Phassa Satta loka and Sankhara loka arise, which is the result. This Phassa loka changes the physical object loka at I-clear element loka into mind object loka, Dhamma aramana, by sending it to the Bhavanga loka via the nerve system loka. With the contact of the Dhamma object loka of the sun and the Bhavanga of Satta loka, and the conditioned ahatuka vinana of Satta loka arises. These three lokas are also Sankhara loka and come to contact again. Because of this cause Phassa of Satta loka arises, and this loka conditions the form, rupa, object at the eye door as Dhamma object loka and sends it to the Bhavanga loka for conditioning. For this Dhamma object loka of desirable or undesirable experience, it connects to Vedanakanda of Satta loka. Based on these Vedanakanda Satta loka and the form Dhamma of Ukkaṭṭha loka objects, with the arising and experience of the Sahetu Vinana of Satta loka, becoming greedy when happy and painful when unhappy, leads to the mind process of loka existence. In this section Sayadaw U Candima gives his view on the true nature of the mind and right or true insight as follows. The mind is except from the Bhavanga, which is at the Hadaya Vathu, i.e., heart basis, does not go out anywhere. This point is also mentioned by Mogik Sayadaw in the wrong view of ordinary people, such as Atta or soul, and even some Chinese monks use this way when teaching people the subject of rebirth. Therefore, the external five sense objects fall on the five sense doors and arrive at the Bhavanga. The tastes of desirable and undesirable sense objects also arrive at Bhavanga. The objects of past and future also rely on the Bhavanga. With the contact with objects, the Bhavanga mind consciousness arises. Tanha, man, ditthi arise if the mind with unwholesome mental factors. It becomes sila samadhi, panna mind if combined with wholesome mental factors. Therefore, all the objects fall onto Bhavanga only, and the mind consciousness can reflect their natures. For insight contemplation, if one's contemplative mind is still taking the external object for attention or reflection, or one's body form of concept, then it's still not the right contemplative knowledge. Because as explained above, all the objects on the Bhavanga and mind consciousness with roots, here contemplative mind, also at the Bhavanga contemplates the objects with its characteristics. Therefore, if the yogi still does not see the clear element of Bhavanga, then he still does not see the phenomena of mind, dharmas, or the true Dhamma. There is a saying by the wise, i.e., knowing and seeing two views purify wrong view, seeing the Bhavanga attain the right way. The objects of worldly sensual concept and the worldly paramatta objects only appear at the Bhavanga. The yogis contemplate the appearing objects at the Bhavanga. In this way, it arrives at purification of view by two knowing and two seeing. Ledi Sayadaw wrote in his book with Uttama Purisa Dapani, as follows: if someone penetrates the Bhavanga, he should know that is an outstanding man. All the dharmas appear at the bhavanga and contemplation also at this place. The three worlds also exist at the bhavanga and transcending the worlds also at this place. This transcending comes from the cessation of clinging in the mind, which based at this bhavanga. Note on the existence of the internal world. Mr. Brown understands the internal existence of the world as mentioned above. These are at the bhavanga clear element the appearance of the image of the Dharma objects, i.e., mind object, of the near past, the appearance of the image of the Dharma objects of the far distant past and the future and at the present time objects. He reflects their nature with the following analogies. The bhavanga clear element is like a white canvas, attention, manashikara, is like a paintbrush. Clinging is like paint. A painter with thought, vitaka, thinking about one's desirable object and with his hand like volition, satana, draws a picture, one's desirable object, on the canvas and the five khandhas of mind object loka appear on it. The meaning here is at the bhavanga clear element a sight of mind object loka appears if pay attention of a form object, ruparamana, which one had seen before in the past. In the same way, the other objects of sound, smell, taste and touch the mind objects, lokas, of them appear or arise at the bhavanga clear element respectively. It's also the same at the present. The five sense objects fall on the five senses of door and arise at the bhavanga. If paying attention to them, the five sense objects appear at it and become lokas. Many uncountable Buddhas and Arahants, including Pacceka Buddhas, were liberated from the three lokas, okasa, satta and sankhara lokas, of the three internal lokas, which are the causes of the clinging mind. The external three lokas are always existing as the changing processes. Mr. Brown has understood this point. The internal sense bases, ajata ayatanas, are true paramatta and essence of natural phenomena, which are profound and difficult to discern. We cannot know about them by speculation, hearing and studying knowledge, e.g., Genesis, evolution etc. The writer refers to his present books, did not write about it by imagination, study and hearing. It was like he himself put the most valuable ruby in his hand and discerned it clearly. To be able to know and see it is quite difficult, and he must put his life and body to realize it. Even though he had to write about it and also be aware that it would be rare for someone able to put forth the effort to see them. It's unable to discern them with ordinary faith and effort. The Buddha himself said this to Prince Bodhi, Bodhirajakumara Sutta, Minnesota 85, Majjhima Nikaya, also can be found at Minnesota 26, The Noble Search. Insight contemplation with the first and second bhavanga samadhi. After the contemplation of the mind and body nature with the third samadhi, Mr. Brown abandons it and goes down to the second samadhi. Right samadhi and insight in Sayadaw U Candima's, Sayadaw U Sandima's, teaching. Samādhi Practices. Part 3, of 3 parts. He knows the cessation of the bhavanga clear element in the second samadhi. There are no worldly sense concepts of the object and paramatta object, and knowing the cessation only with the samadhi. With the following contemplative knowledge of Sahetu Vijnana, he knows the preceding samadhi mind of Sahetu Vijnana there. At that time, taking the objects of 36 kinds of paramatta mind and form in the third samadhi are not there anymore, or, he does not see it. Even though making the effort of attention for many times it does not appear, only the attention mind arises once and ceases there. This is like the analogy mentioned before. When the owner of the house comes out of the bedroom and then closes the door, he can no longer see what is inside the bedroom, only what is outside the bedroom. He also does not see the thing inside the house compound and outside of it. The object of cessation is like the object outside the bedroom. If he comes out from the object of cessation and pays attention to the physical body, will discern the refined particles are changing very thickly. These refined particles also like the object outside the bedroom. The discernment of particles with the third samadhi are the mind-object particles, Dhamma Aramana, which appear at the Bhavanga clear element. The discernment of the particles with the second samadhi is not this one, it's the Paramatta Rupa particles, Kalapas, of the physical body. Mr. Brown contemplates the changing particle because it has no sign of shape or form and exists only as a group of particles. It's changing, not according to my will. At this changing process, I do not exist. This changing form, Rupa, is not my creation. There is no life and soul in these changing particles. It does not have the nature of stability, and only exists as change. It is itself the nature of conditioning form. Again, Mr. Brown changes his samadhi into the first Bhavanga samadhi. At that time, the first level purified mind, contemplative mind, discerns the inclining mind, Mano Samphasa, from the mind door, Mano Devara, toward the hotness of the form, the afflicted form. Once this inclined mind, Mano Samphasa, reaches the most prominent place, i.e. the hottest place, this mind will have a concept, as heat, when the following contemplative mind investigates it and sees or discerns it with the arising mind as the concept of heat. You cannot change the awareness of the hot mind to the awareness of the cold. The following contemplative mind contemplates the arising hotness of mind of its nature non-self, anatta. The perception of the hotness of mind is not by my creation and not me. He is contemplating with insight. Again with mindfulness, he contemplates it as only the nature of form, Rupa, and the preceding mind taking the concept of hotness cease by itself and the mind knowing with panna of the changing nature of form arises. He investigates them with the three universal characteristics. Again Mr. Brown contemplates the Mano Samphasa which from the Bhavanga inclining toward the afflicted form, Rupa. This inclining nature does not have life or soul. There is no I-ness exists and not my creation, also not by God or Mahabrahma. There are no instigators, or others. This is the natural characteristics of the mind which inclining toward the afflicted form by itself to connect Rupa with the Bhavanga. He contemplates it with insight knowledge. Again, when he contemplates with insight to the following result of the inclining mind, he discerns the experience of feeling, Vedana, which feels the undesirable nature of afflicted form at the mind door. Mano Devara, this is the feeling nature of experience on the object. This is not my feeling. There is no me in the nature of experience nor life and soul in it. There is no creator, etc. He contemplates the nature of Vedana with insight. When contemplating only its nature of Vedana and in one's own mind, there is no pain and pleasure, dukkha and sukha. If not contemplating Vedana as just only feeling nature and let the following mind relates it with self, ditthi, nature and with the undesirable taste of Vedana, then the mind with concepts, hot, tense, pain, etc. arises for not wanting to experience it, i.e., undesirable or unpleasant objects. The following contemplative mind with the three characteristics of insight contemplates the arising conceptual mind. Again, change the contemplation to Vedana as just feeling nature, then the original perception of the mind with the hotness and pain, not wanting to feel. All these mental states cease by themselves. This can be discerned with contemplative knowledge. This is not the kind of abandoning with one's own will or desire, also not the kind of cessation by changing the posture. This is also not the kind of cessation by running away from the object during the arising. It's seeing the characteristic of the mind experience of Vedanakanda, feeling aggregate, the Sakaya Paramatta Dhamma, which means the true existence, not like the self or soul, that the cessation of dosa with domanassa. In other way, the discernment of the truth, which is the true knowledge, vijja, nana, that from feeling, vedana, and craving, tanna, ceases. With the attainment of right view, samadhi, there is only the feeling of the mind nature exists, no I-ness exists. With the discernment of its only the changing nature of form, rupa, and feeling of the mind nature and the non-self insight knowledge arises. Discernment of these with khandhas is seeing the truth of dukkha. If contemplate the feeling as me and with feel it which is related with ditthi and tanna, and the original concept of hotness, with not wanting to feel domanassa mind arises again by itself. This is the mind changing by changing the object of attention, taking the object of concept as reality, then ditthi and tanna mind arises. If contemplate the reality of paramatta, dhamma, ditthi and tanna ceases. Again, take off the inclining mind contact, mano samphassa, from the object and return it to the mind door. Then contemplate on the original form element with knowledge and cannot give the perception, sana, of hotness to the conceptual object. It can be given the perception that it has the quality of paramatta form that is only constantly changing. These are existing as changing form paramatta and the inclinable volitional formation of the mind, sankharakanda, which are mind and form. There is no person nor being exists, the non-self insight knowledge arises. Again, take off the inclinable mind from the original form object of fire element, hotness, and return to the bhavanga, and then with one's desire, change the object with another object. Mr. Brown discerns the mind contact, mano samphassa, from the mind door. It inclines toward the changing object, new object. It happens by attending to the new object, manashikara, with the mind. At that time, with knowledge sees the mind contact inclining toward the new object from the bhavanga. Again, with one's desire relaxes, i.e., let go off, the attention on the new object and the inclining mind contact ceases by itself, and a new mind contact arises by itself toward the original distinctive heat element of form, teyadhatu. Mr. Brown discerns all of them with knowledge, directly. He is able to do these things like a cat getting a mouse and playing with it, i.e., the arising of the inclinable nature of the mind by itself, controlling the inclining mind and changing the inclination toward a new object. He is able to do these things like a cat getting a mouse and playing with it, i.e., the arising of the inclinable nature of the mind by itself, controlling the inclining mind and changing the inclination toward a new object with one's desire. Candima's view on this point. Experiencing the Dhamma and discerning of the truth of dukkha mean discernment with analytical knowledge on the natural qualities of the paramatta mind and form objects, which is like seeing a priceless ruby in one's hand. With one's own thought and speculation, contemplate on feeling, vedana, as it's experiencing or feeling the object. It will only become the insight of appearance, in Burmese a theme vipassana. A theme means appearance. And then the valuable insight Dhamma becomes cheap Dhamma and an easy-going practice. From cheap value it can fall down to no value. This warning is important. In the past I had read some English books written by Westerners in practice, and the title of one of the books is, Lazy Guide to Enlightenment, etc. In the following, Candima continues to explain the contemplation of insight on other mind contacts and feelings, Vedanas, from the other doors, Dvaras. The readers already have the general idea how to do it, so I will leave here. Contemplation on mind contact and feeling with the body movements. Mr. Brown continues his practice on the mind and body process with the body movements as follows. There are body movements of sitting, standing, lifting the feet, stepping, butting down the feet, taking things, giving things, etc. He takes these objects with concepts and intrinsic nature, paramatta, and contemplate its arising mind and matter, form, process with insight knowledge. For example, in the process of stepping on the foot, the only thing to be aware of is the rising of the mind of the desire to step. The following mind should not give the perception of a mind that wants to step out, sana, not like the Mahasi system. The mind contact will incline toward by itself to the heaviness of form, at the feet, which arisen by itself. As soon as after the inclination, the knowledge mind pays attention to the nature of feeling, Vedana, which experiences good or bad. A mind will arise by itself, with no concept, perception, of heaviness, such as the mind inclines toward the arising form, rupa, and feels it. If the concept of object is taken, the above-mentioned mind that just knows the nature of paramatta will stop on its own, a mind that arises by giving a heavy name to it, without wanting to feel it. When putting down the foot, the prominent form, rupa element, arises with the mind by themselves. Yogi has to watch and observe them. Knowing the paramatta form Dhamma is Kayanupassana Satipatthana. Discernment of the feeling which experiences the object form is Vedananupassana Satipatthana. Contemplation of the mind with Vedana is Cittanupassana Satipatthana. Contemplate on the rise and fall of mind and form process according to their cause and effect relationship is Dhammanupassana Satipatthana. In this way, contemplate to have the clear knowledge on the cause of the arising of ignorance, avijja, and its cessation, the cause of the arising of dukkha and its cessation, the cause of the arising and tanha, mana and ditthi and their cessation. The following contemplative mind sahetu vinana is seeing penetratively of the mind contact which inclining instantaneously and after the inclination, the mind, also sahetu mano vinana, which is the preceding mind. Feels the feeling, vedana, of the desirable or undesirable object, ittha aramana and anatta aramana. At this place, whatever desirable or undesirable object of the feeling, Vedana arises if the contemplative mind only contemplates just as feeling to pain and pleasure and only knowing as feeling. The following contemplative mind also can contemplate and discern the preceding knowing mind. If the yogi not contemplate just as Vedana but as me and mine with ditthi tanha, and with the base of desirable object of feeling and the pleasant nature of the mind arises by itself. This mind is discerned by the following contemplative mind. If based on the undesirable object of Vedana, an unpleasant mind arises by itself. This arising mind also has to contemplate with the following contemplative mind with insight knowledge by way of 3 characteristics. This first bhavanga or first level of purified mind, or the contemplative knowledge mind, cannot discern the mind and body of the third bhavanga and also the mind and body of the second bhavanga. It also cannot take these objects. Similarly, the first samadhi cannot take worldly objects of the senses, such as man, woman, my son, my daughter, human being, dog, tree, etc. These sensual conceptual objects are like all the objects outside the house compound. See the analogy of the 3 bhavanga samadhis compare with the 3 doors of the house. With the first bhavanga samadhi, as mentioned above, contemplate the mind and form, contemplating thoroughly by insight knowledge until all doubts are clear away, and then abandoning it and changing into the second bhavanga samadhi. At that time, this second samadhi can't contemplate and see the 4 elements, 32 parts of the body objects and worldly sensual objects which the first samadhi has discerned. These objects cease. In the same way, it does not see the 36 types of mind and form, which the third samadhi discerns. After arriving at the second bhavanga, it takes the cessation of worldly conceptual objects and worldly paramattha objects with the perception of the mind. Abandoning the cessation, i.e., come out from samadhi, and paying attention to the physical body, and it discerns the groups of refined particles are falling apart. At that time, the second samadhi cannot contemplate all the external objects of outside the house compound which are like sensual conceptual objects, i.e., ordinary mind, and the objects of inside the house compound which are like the 4 elements and 32 body parts, i.e., the first samadhi. It also cannot see the objects inside the bedroom, which are like 36 kinds of mind and form, i.e., third samadhi. From the first bhavanga to the second bhavanga is like opening the main house door and entering inside the house. If the yogi not entering into the first bhavanga and with the ordinary mind cannot know all the objects of mind and form related to the first, the second and the third bhavanga samadhis respectively. It's like knowing the objects of earth, forest, mountain, etc. And the mind knows them as man, woman, I am hot, I am unbearable, etc. Which are non-existence of concepts with tanha, mama and ditthi mind. In the same way, if the yogi abandoning all the 3 bhavangas, cannot take the objects of related to them, and he has the mind of like someone who does not practice, only has common view and knowledge. At that time, the yogi only with the speculation of knowledge can know the contemplating objects with their minds and the nature of the contemplative mind. This is the description of the analytical knowing of the paramattha mind and form nama rupa paragraha nana by way of purification of view. Ditthi visuddhi. Note: afflicted rupa, form, the inclination of the mind, experience of Vedana. These pair of mind and form can be contemplated at the first bhavanga and also at the second bhavanga. Purification by overcoming doubt. Pakaya, paragraha nana. In the purification of view, nama rupa paragraha nana, explained about the objects of mind and form which can be contemplated by the levels of bhavanga samadhi, i.e., first, the second and the third bhavanga respectively. Now here Candima continues to explain the causes of their arising to the mind and form in 3 levels, which is the arising of the discernment of the conditions of mind and form, pakaya paragraha nana. After his discernment of the present nature of mind and form, Mr. Brown knows them with the analytical direct knowledge as these are not mine, not my construction, and nor the I-ness exists. If this khandha group is not my construction, then what made it happen? This desire for knowledge arises in him, and he contemplates it with his discerning knowledge of the Buddha's teachings. In the Chaccaka Sutta, the Buddha taught as follows. Dependent on the body and tangibles, body consciousness arises. The meeting of the three is contact. With contact as condition there is feeling. With feeling as conditions there is craving. Based on the four elements is the body clear element, kaya pasada. Dependent on contact of body clear element and the tangible object, the result of body consciousness arises. Again dependent on the contact of the three, i.e., body consciousness, body clear element and tangible object, the result of the new element body contact, kaya samphasa, arises. This new arising body contact changes the object into mind element, Dhamma dhatu. By connecting the bhavanga and new cause arises. Dependent on this cause, the tangible mind objects, ahatuka and sahetuka, in bhavanga result in the arising of mind consciousness. Again with this mind object, Dhamma aramana, ahatuka mano vinana and bhavanga dependent on the three contacts that the result of mind contact, mano samphasa, arises. This cause of mind contact causes the result of feeling which experiences the desirable and undesirable objects arises. If this feeling with the new arising sahetu vinana sticks with moha, delusion, the result of lobha, dosa, ditthi unwholesome dharma arises. If this rooted mind consciousness, sahetu vinana, arises along with the path factors, magangas, it can abandon the corresponding defilement, and lobha, dosa, moha, etc., these defilement will cease. In this way, Mr. Brown continues to contemplate and reflect on the other sense doors to understand the causes and effects relationship of mind and form, until overcoming doubt. Present supporting conditions for the cause of khandha. Here I will not describe Candima's description on this topic. I will only give a general idea about it. The conditions for the causes are kama, citta, uttu, ahara, sense objects, sense doors, dependent co-origination process, etc. Here Mogik Sayadaw's teaching on this subject is very good for contemplation. The arising of the mind process and its ending. After contemplation on the present conditions for the arising khandha, Mr. Brown continues to deal with the following questions in his mind. 1. Why does this khandha process arise? 2. What are the causes for the arising, life, and cessation, death, of new minds in this life? 3. At present, every human being supports the body with nutriment, ahara, but they can't prevent aging, sickness, and death. What are the causes of it? 4. Is there any new khandha still arising after this khandha ends, or not arising? 5. What are the causes of new khandha arising and not their arising? Mr. Brown uses the Paticcasamuppada, dependent co-arising, teaching with contemplation to find out the above questions for the answers. The answers for them are as follows. 1. This khandha process is the action, kama, of a past life process. 2. In this present life, the arising of new mind processes, existence or alive, is the cause of kamic energy, the four elements and the present sense objects. New minds not arising, i.e., death, is the ending of the energy for the round of kama result, vipaka vata, or the lifespan of the khandha built by kama. 3. In this present life, however, we support the khandhas with nutriments, we still cannot stop aging, sickness, and death. It is like a house that becomes slowly degraded is the ending of the vipaka vata energy. 4. Even though this present kanda is over, if it still has kama, and new kanda of the next life, future life, will arise again. The kanda house will continue to build new life due to the presence of the kama. 5. Because of kama we get the new life of the kanda house. In this way, overcoming doubt and knowing the causal relationship between the aggregates, kanda, of mind and form is pakaya paragaha nana. The arising of the pakaya paragaha nana in the yogi's mind that clear away doubt on the past kanda, present kanda, future kanda and on the teaching of paticcasamuppada. Purification of the path and not path, samasana nana. In this section I will not explain what Candima explains in his book. Here I only give the general idea about them. Yogis have to contemplate the three universal characteristics of anicca, dukkha and anatta for many times. First with the first bhavanga samadhi with their corresponding objects such as 32 body parts, 4 elements, etc. And then with the second bhavanga and the third bhavanga respectively. Contemplations are quite in detail. At the end of contemplation with the third samadhi section, he writes, in this way, with the 4 postures, lying, sitting, standing and walking, contemplating the basic mind and form, nama rupa, at the 6 sense doors. This contemplation of knowledge is the coarser rise and fall knowledge, uday abhaya nana. When the contemplation and reflective power become powerful and sati power with contemplative knowledge power becomes better or increased. And then the knowledge mind is able to contemplate the objects of mind and form more and more details. Yogi entering the 3 bhavangas of samadhi back and forth quickly able to discern in details each level of the objects. Even the yogi can discern the collision with form particles with each other. It is mentioned in one of the Ingu Sayadaw's talks that he can hear sounds. Another experience is from the 5 sense doors. The inclination of the contact element can be discerned as like electric current with electric particles falling apart, like sparks. In this way, discernment of contemplative knowledge becomes powerful so that it doesn't need special attentive sati, and it's like contemplation and discernment arise automatically. Candima continues to explain some experiences of the 10 insight corruptions, vipassanupakalasas, yogis encounter. I will not explain it because readers can find them in other teachings. At that time, with the above experiences, yogi without knowingly cling to these things with thinking as, I attain the path and fruit. He can abandon his contemplation of paramatta mind and form objects. If yogi has these experiences, he should know that it's still not the supramundane path knowledge. At that time, yogi has to continue with its primary paramatta mind and form objects until insight knowledge becomes purified. This is the insight process of purification of the path and not path. In most cases, the above experience of insight corruption occurs more often in people who have not learned knowledge, pariyat. Purification of the way. Knowledge of rise and fall, the mature stage. In this section Candima explains about knowledge of the dissolution of formations, bhavanganana. Knowledge of dissolving things as fearful, bhayananam. Knowledge of fearful things as dangerous, adanava nana. And knowledge of disenchantment with all formations, nibbida nana. Knowledge of desire for deliverance, munsatukamyata nana. Knowledge of reflecting contemplation, patisinka nana. knowledge of equanimity toward formations, Sankarapekkha Nana. From the knowledge of equanimity toward path knowledge. Whatever living being may be, if they have the khandhas and every time the sense objects contact with the sense doors, the impermanence of mind and form always exists there even though they can contemplate with insight or not. The nature of their rising and falling conditions will not end. A yogi has faith, saddha, as if he can discern mind and form will arrive at nibbana. He has effort, viriya, to discern him, and has mindfulness, sati, to contemplate them without fail. Every time mind and form arise, one can contemplate straight away with samadhi, and with wisdom, panna, contemplate the nature of mind and form. All these are only worldly objects, and behind these 5 factors there is a latent element, anusaya, with dissatisfaction. This dissatisfaction has a desire to free from the impermanent mind and form. There is conceit if seeing impermanent mind and form must be able to attain nibbana, which is the cessation of them. The desire is for the permanent nibbana, and what one gets is impermanent. But the mind is unable to stay at a place which is free from mind and form objects. This happening because there is clinging with desire in the contemplative mind for the cessation of impermanent khandha. This level is the early stage of knowledge of equanimity. From there, when the power of contemplation becomes strong, the knowledge of contemplation is freed from desires, and one can only see them, without reaction, while contemplating. This is the mature stage of the knowledge of equanimity. Knowledge of conformity, anuloma nana. This knowledge is still contemplating with equanimity the worldly objects of conditioned mind and form with the 3 characteristics. Even though it's contemplating on the impermanence of the mind and form, which are not ending yet. The contemplating knowledge is like stopping the impermanence of a conditioned mind and form with calmness. When contemplating in this way and reflection arises as follows. Mind and form conditioned phenomena are in the processes of arising, presence and dissolution, 3 sub-moments of duration, after attaining the khandha. If the yogi does not abandon it, he will not free or liberate, but accept this object of conditioned worldly dharma, there is no other object to incline on. He also became a little tired from contemplation. Even though becoming tired, he still doesn't know and see nibbana yet, also not free from the worldly province. With the desire to be freed by contemplating it, but arriving back to the worldly province. From the above reflection and yogi contemplates it every time with the desire to know but not free from the Lokya province. In this way, he reflects and contemplates for many times and makes a strong decision. I'll not realize nibbana, with this decision and put down his concern and abandon all his desires and volition to do it. At that time, the mind wanting to contemplate to know, to free, and the mind wanting to find the cause to be free, how to look for it, etc. And then all these mental formations, citta sankhara, with desire are ceased and fall into bhavanga. This process is similar to some mentioned in the commentary and teachers, such as jumping to cross the trench, a seabird looking for the shore. At that time, the minds with all the worldly mental formations are ceased, and it takes the object of nibbana, which is freed from the shape and image of worldly objects. It stays by itself like it has no owner. This is taking the object of cessation of the worldly mental formations, or the object of nibbana, the truth of cessation of dukkha. This mind is specially purified and able to take the object of nibbana, because it could abandon both desire of wanting to take the worldly paramattha objects and wanting to realize nibbana. At the contemplative knowledge, all the desires are ceased, and it liberated from the bondage of craving, tanha. Here is the ending of Sayadaw U Candima teaching on right samadhi and insight. Readers who want to know more in detail, please search for the English translation of his book on the internet www.amazon.com as an ebook. In the following I want to offer the readers an important simple practice related to karma, the law of action, and its result which was mentioned in his book. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, written by American author Richard Bach. The reason for fewer followers in Buddhism and the reason for easy disappearance. The Buddha taught human beings to see the faults of sensual pleasures and to abandon them. But humans like sensual pleasures with strong desire. He taught humans to look after their sila, precepts, virtues and morality. But they do not want to look after it. The Buddha taught him to purify their minds by practicing samadhi. But humans prefer their minds to be suffused with variegated defiled objects. The Buddha taught to contemplate the nature of the khandhas, mind and matter as inconstant, suffering and non-self. But human being clings to them as a person, a being or a soul, self, and sees them as constant, permanent, happy, self and beautiful, Subha. As a result, Buddhists are fewer in numbers than other faiths and Dhamma tends to disappear. Sanjaya, the first teacher of Sariputta, said that there are more fools than wise people, and this is true. The wise will come to Dhamma and the fools to other views. A simple experiment for one who disbelieves in the law of actions and its results. Here is an offering to someone, or people, who does not believe in the law of actions and its result, which can be known directly with the following experiment. This practice refers to people who have wrong livelihoods such as killing, to animals, murdering, criminal gang, mafia gang, etc. etc. They should do this experiment by themselves. 1. Spread a thick blanket on the floor. 2. Sitting crossed legs on the floor. 3. Put your right hand on the left hand. 4. Breathe the air in and out more than 6 or 7 times stronger than normal breathing, so that one can hear loudly with one's ears. 5. Breathe the air arriving at the chest. 6. Breathe with acceleration, not breathing slowly. 7. Breathe mindfully, with sati, in and out. 8. Practice for at least 40 minutes. Practice in this way for around 30 or 40 minutes. One has to suffer as one's own action. As an example, if one had killed pigs, he would suffer like pigs. If killed cows, he would suffer like cows, etc. All these people will know themselves according to their own actions. After gaining an understanding of your behavior, you want to walk away from the exercise, then slowly reduce your inhalation and exhalation. And don't stop it instantly. Don't put effort in the breathing. Abandoning all the objects or views one has been seen. It seems this point is important. No one should carry around one's own unwholesome actions in the mind. We only need to learn our mistakes and try our best to correct and change them. I once saw a Chinese documentary about this issue. One of the scenes showed a middle-aged man killing a donkey by hitting the poor being on the head with a sledgehammer. It's too cruel. There is another scene which shows the same man squatting on the floor with both hands on his head, crying with pain and moving on the floor. Facing this suffering person was the Chinese yogis who were meditating on their seats. Western evolutionary theory speculates that human beings developed from monkeys. But they don't have a devolutionary theory. The Buddha taught both evolution and devolution, but not as theories and as law. The law of karma, or actions, which are mental, verbal and physical actions respectively. Of these three, mental law is the most important one and the basic for the others. Mental right pointing arrow, verbal right pointing arrow, physical actions. The law of karma is a natural law, not man-made. It never deviates from the truth. Laws and regulations made by man are made by worldlings full of defilement. As a result, it sometimes causes problems, danger, and suffering. For example, gun laws in the United States. Some politicians and political leaders change laws and regulations because of corruption, for their purposes, control of power and wealth. The Buddhist law of karma is related to evolution and degeneration, devolution. The Dhamma of evolution is the wholesome or positive Dhamma, while the Dhamma of degeneration, devolution, is the unwholesome or negative Dhamma. There is a special law of action which transcends both of them, i.e., positive and negative. This is the Noble Eightfold Path. Human beings have mind and body. Evolution of the mind is more important than physical evolution, which is also based in the mind. Therefore, if the human mind does not evolve, human will retreat into monkey, hell-being and hungry shades. There are ways to evolution and devolution, and Buddha Dharma is for this purpose. Even it has a special way to transcend them. All the discourses in the Pali Nikayas are related to these three paths. For worldly evolution and devolution, there are two important suttas in the Sutta Nipata. These are Mangala, blessings, sutta, and Parabhava, downfall, sutta. Therefore, Buddha's Dharma is an education related to humans. Without this noble education, humans never know how to deal with their mental defilement and solving the human problems. Instead, they will always nourish their defiled minds. It's amazing to see humans never learn from their mistakes and do the wrong things or following the wrong ways to deal with their problems. The worst thing is even they don't consider it as a problems. E.g., some world leaders, governments and politicians. They are making the same mistakes and problems again and again and never learned from the history of the world. Humanity has created many problems in the world today that support this important point. Western discoveries and inventions in science and technology created Western hedonism, leading to insatiable lust and greed, creating colonization around the world. The two world wars of the 20th century began in the West. After the Second World War, there was a Cold War between capitalism and communism. After the Soviet Union collapsed, communism was nearly in demise. What is happening in the world in this 21st century? In the field of political influence and economy, there are still confrontations, rivalries, struggles and battles between the superpowers, up to the international level. So the Buddha Dharma and world history teach us that material progress or evolution is not true progress because it is based on hedonism and represents desire, greed, lust, selfishness, jealousy, delusion, etc. These unwholesome dharmas will lead to the devolution of mankind. It will create disharmony, no peace and happiness, and lead to suffering. Therefore, material progress must go hand in hand with the mind or mental progress or development. This gap can be filled by the wholesome and noble education of ancient sages and Buddhism. Actions based on wrong views, wrong ideas and wrong actions will never bring peace and happiness on earth. Man can create heaven or hell on this beautiful earth.